Thank you.
First of all, Eric, tell us a little bit about your early influences. Tell us a little bit about your early life.
My early life, I'm an American who, unlike many people here in the UK, I came from the American South. So
Okay.
my family hails from the place that Jim Crow existed and segregation, slavery existed. That's where the Collins family was born, was imported,
Okay.
and then we lived for centuries, in fact, in that part of the world. I was born in the very deep South in Alabama.
Okay.
And on a historically Black university campus called Tuskegee. Some people know it because of the Tuskegee Airmen. Some people know it because of the Commodores. There are various reasons why people know, but that's where I was born. And so and I was born during the Civil Rights Movement. So I was born during a time when there was a switch coming in the United States between sort of laws that kept Black people in their place and in their space, and there is a growing freedom. And in fact, as I like to tell everyone, I'm the first person in my family. That's over the decades and centuries we've been here, and we've been there in the United States. And over the many generations that have gone before me, I was the first person born with the right to vote in the United States and guaranteed the right to vote as a Black person.
Wow.
So being born into that situation, people who come from, Black countries and where Black rule has existed, they understand one sort of thing. My existence has been one like that. So, sort of an underdog in that respect, but coming from a family who didn't think of themselves as underdogs, coming from a family who felt that our job was, if we had education, if we had capital, was social change and to make our way in the world, not just for ourselves, but for everyone else who looked like us or who identified with us. They didn't have to be Black. They didn't have to be from the South. They didn't have to be, agricultural in terms of their base, but they needed to be some people who felt that the world could be a better place.
Okay.
And the influences that I had, Judy and Colin, I had to pick up from various places. Sometimes you could see the Supremes on television, or sometimes you could see, Richard Pryor in a very tame set. Sometimes you could do any number of things. But one thing that I did was I read a lot. And some of the things that I read were things like, were things that encouraged, me and my Blackness. And that was Ebony Magazine and Black Enterprise. I thought that those were seminal pieces of creating my worldview and making me the person that I am, which is why I'm so happy talking to you, that you all have a magazine, that you have a forum in which you're depicting and you're presenting these sort of images and these sorts of opportunities to talk about aspirationally what it is that we are accurately, and then what we can be aspirationally. That's all very important.
Fantastic. Okay.
So, Eric, I'd like to ask you then, who were your early role models before getting into your serial entrepreneurship? Because it's not just one thing. Yeah. Who were those early inspirations?
But Judy, I don't know if you're like me, but that my early inspiration was very close to home. I have an older brother who's 3 years older than me. He's 3 grades ahead of me in school. So it was always Bradley. And first child, he was the prince, he's the prince, and I'm the heir to the throne. And then there's me, sort of a secondary character like Harry. And then there's my sister below, who's sort of a princess, who, is Czarina in waiting. So I'm sort of stuck in the middle. But I had a brother who I could imitate and emulate everything that he did, because he did so many fascinating things. And then I had parents who made a conscious decision about how they were going to raise their children. And again, raised us in the Deep South during a time of segregation, and then moved us outside of New York City, but then moved us again down to the South, to Greensboro, North Carolina. And Greensboro, North Carolina is where the sit-in movement started. Students sitting in a Woolworth, the lunch counter. That's where it started. They moved us from a very leafy and very progressive suburb outside of New York City, where you could, drive into the city, at a moment's notice, and took us down to a place that was sort of another hotbed of change, because my parents felt that that was sort of their job. And so they were always these disruptors. So my first people in personal life, in my idea of civic duty, are my parents, Henry and Adeline Collins, to whom I dedicated the book. And I call them my first investors, because that's what they did. They invested a huge amount of themselves, all of their resources and aspirations into us. Now, my father had a PhD. My mother had a master's degree. Dad was a professor at a university, and then he went to a Swiss chemical company as an executive. So, you know, I had a bit of a different life, but part of what they were doing was trying to create a disruptive path.
Yeah.
They were saying that you didn't have to, Eric, you don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be a lawyer to be a successful person as a Black person. What you could do is you can be within these other sort of contexts and these other environments, and you can make a change there, and you can make a difference. And so I followed that, and look at him. Dad was, you know, going back and forth to Switzerland in the 70s, and here I am living in the UK, you know, doing things across the pond, so to speak.
Yeah, that sounds great. And where you said you don't know whether you're anything like me. Well, there are some similarities. I am a middle child with an older brother who, yes, is a role model. And my mother was an educator as well. And for me, what I saw there was that persistence to kind of like have that legacy of you can achieve this, where, coming to England, she had to go back to university. She was a qualified teacher from back home, and she had to go back and do that again, and she did that. And so, I've had that opportunity.
Fantastic.
Lots of similarities there.